Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin Robotham from L Marketing and Events. And today I'm here with Paula, our web developer, and we're going to talk about the power of a professional website. So, Paula, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Paula Sagasser. I have been working with website design from I'm aging myself from before the internet was a thing. Um, when the small business I worked for was like, hey, we should have a website. Can you do that? And I was a technical writer at the time, and I was like, sure, I'll do that. And I haven't looked back. I did a little bit of work for government agencies as a contractor, so some of their weird website design. And then I started my own business back in 94. No, sorry, 2014. I don't know where my
I was
brain
going to
is.
say, if it's 1994, it's as old
2014,
as me.
doing specifically website design. And yeah, I love the creativity. I love the storytelling. It melds the best of writing with visuals.
For sure. And that's one thing that I wanted to talk about. So, a great website has both. It has great copy and it has, great design.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit about some of the other elements of a great website.
You have to put yourself in the shoes of the person coming to your site. I mean, that's the first and foremost. What will they want when they get there? What will make it easy for them to use the site? Don't make them think is a big web design philosophy is don't make me think, just put it right there. So there needs to be a good call to action that sends them to as directly as possible what you think will make them take an action. Not what you want them to do necessarily, but what you think they'll do. So you want to have great navigation, that's easy to find the pages on your website. You want to have, top of the fold content where they don't have to scroll a lot to find the important things that they're looking for. And then contact information so that they can get in touch with you multiple ways because not everybody will call, not everybody will email, not everybody will use a form. So, really, you just want to make it as easy as possible for someone to find your information, buy from you if that's what you want them to do, book with you if that's what you want them to do. And so, yeah, you really need to mix between what you need and what you think they'll do and what they need.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that you mentioned, having um, the important stuff above the fold. So in marketing, that's how we talk about websites. Basically, the above the fold is it's like with a newspaper.
Yeah, exactly. That
Yeah.
it's an old written thing, but it's talking about, yeah, that content before you open up the full newspaper and look at it.
hmm Yeah. So basically, it's like um, the most important stuff should be at the top before anybody has to scroll any further.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So and you mentioned like well-structured like navigation and content. So tell me a little bit about how you should structure your content with heading tags, which is especially beneficial for SEO.
Sure. So this gets a little bit behind the weeds of what's going on behind the website. But when a search engine visits your site, I mean, it's kind of this dumb thing that's scrolling through your content, and it's looking for some specific clues as it's scrolling through that page for what the page is about. So the most important thing is your page title, which is you want that page title to say this is the primary thing the page is about. When someone looks at a search engine results page, when they've typed in search and they're looking at the search engine results page, that title is that big most important thing that they see. So your page
Mhm.
title is important, and then the first heading on your page should be like a heading one, and that should also match the page title. That should match your keywords that you're trying to target as closely as possible. And then you want to make sure that you only have one heading one tag on your page, because if you had two, the search engine, which is stupid, will go, so what is this page really about?
Hmm.
So that's where you've got the heading one, then you've got heading two, which basically is a way of sorting the page going on down all the way from heading three, four, five, six.
Hmm.
And it's, if you thought about it, if you were a search engine and you couldn't see the page and all you could go by was the text that was on the page, how would you know to navigate the most important parts of that page? How would
Yeah.
you break it up?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and besides being super helpful for search engines to determine what your page is about, it also has a ADA component because screen readers read the H1, H2, H3, and so on in cascading order. So if your heading tags are out of order, screen readers will read it incorrectly, which can actually get you dinged by. I know there are some organizations that go through websites and make sure that they're ADA compliant, and if they're not, you get in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just for usability's sake. It's, if you're making those screen readers and those accessible technologies happy, you're making search engines happy. It's a good user experience just across the board to include all of those elements in your website.
Hmm.
And you don't have to, I mean, well, it depends on what you're doing, but a lot of your themes, a lot of the websites out there will let you style however you want. So H1 could be the smallest at the top, and then H2, you could style it to be large, and H3, different sizes. So you don't have to say, hey, H1 has to be the biggest.
Hmm.
H2 has to then be this size and that size. There are a lot of creative things you can do to not confuse a screen reader, but to make it so that you're making visual and aesthetic changes as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's where some people, especially if you're building your own website, kind of get tripped up.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell me, let's talk a little bit about creating mobile-friendly sites. Something that I've run into lately is sites that are considered mobile-friendly, but they're not mobile optimized. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between the two.
Well, and that's another one of those things where aesthetics can come into play. A lot of the times we do like text over an image on, so you've got this big image, it has text over it, and if you are looking at it on a full size screen, it looks perfect. Everything's centered, the image looks right. Then you look at it on a mobile phone, and if you wanted to shrink that image down so that they could see the full image, which is what you're supposed to be doing for mobile, then all of the sudden, all of that text that you're doing looks weird.
Hmm.
Or if you set like a specific text size and you don't do it so that it's set up with mobile in mind, when you look at it on the mobile screen, all of the sudden you're like word wrapping and your text is
Hmm.
huge.
Yep.
So you there are a lot of ways that you can set things up that are designed specifically for the mobile experience
Hmm.
instead of pixel size for fonts. And again, we're getting into the weeds here, a little bit of technicality, but you set like a view width or you set an M, and when you do that, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I want you to adjust your size based on the size of the screen
Hmm.
that this is being viewed on. And as long as you're doing that, as long as you're setting things up so that they will adjust to the size of the screen it's being viewed on, then it's going to be a great experience for someone on mobile as well.
Yep.
I mean, like Google had their whole AMP thing where they wanted to create like a different version of your website specifically for the mobile experience. And a lot of businesses have done that in the past. They've got their desktop site and they have their mobile site. And
Hmm.
that's not ideal. You actually don't want to have to maintain content in two places. You
Yeah,
want to have
no.
your website and then have it just adjust.
Yep. Because otherwise you're making double the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and it's something like 80% of users will go to your website on mobile. So that's why mobile is so important when you're considering, um, when you're building a website to make
Yeah.
sure that that's optimized and mobile friendly.
I mean, they might look at it in two different ways, but I can guarantee you at some point they're gonna be on their phone on your
Looking
website.
on your web. Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about, we talked a little bit about search engine optimization.
Mhm.
Let's see. Whoa, I just lost my notes. Let's talk a little bit about website builders, because there are website builders that are more friendly to SEO than others.
Right. Um, so I think about it, a business is first starting out and they're like, I don't really know how to describe myself. I don't really know what I need to have on my website. And maybe I'm not ready yet to work with like a designer. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to find Wix. I'm going
Hmm.
to set up a Wix site. I'm going to look at their templates and I'm going to find one that looks that I like. And I'm going to fill it out with my own information and I'm going to have it out there. And fortunately for people who are in that position where they're not ready to like evolve their site, they're not ready to grow, Wix has done a lot better job now of being search engine friendly. It used to be that, you know, people searching and finding Wix sites, they'd go to like the Wix to sell Wix and not get to the people's websites. So they have actually made it much better now where you can put in specific metadata, which is what shows up on those search engine results pages, that
Hmm.
little description that people see. You can set up your page titles. You can do all of that in a builder like Wix. And so that's a great starting point if you just aren't ready to work with a professional designer. You need something. You want to legitimize your business. You want to have a website. So you can set it up in a builder like that. There are a lot of e-commerce things like Shopify where they're very heavily templated. You're renting space from those services, but they take care of all the server stuff for you. And a lot of businesses really love that. When you start to need to really customize, when that template that you first found doesn't really meet your needs anymore, or it doesn't really look the way you want it to, or you want to look more professional, more custom, that's when you're talking about like a custom site. And that's where you're looking at something like WordPress, where you want to do content marketing, you want to blog. And WordPress is a much better platform specifically for that type of thing where you're regularly writing new content, you're marketing, you're creating blogs on a regular basis. Um, Wix has blogging, but it's a little bit weird. Shopify has blogging, it's a little weird. So when you're ready to evolve your site, that's when you can work in something like WordPress, and still you can work in templates. You can find a template you like, do your site in that. But if you really want to customize the look of feel, you want it to be you want it to be your business, heavily branded towards you, and you don't want to look like someone else, you can still do that in WordPress. And so
Hmm.
that's when, you know, you're evolving your site into something like a WordPress site where you're actually giving people content and they're making it look the way you want it to look.
Yeah. So let's talk about hiring a web developer. So we you kind of talked a little bit about kind of that tipping point for where you might consider a web developer. So tell me a little bit about what a web developer can do for a business's website.
Um, Search engine optimization, that's one of those areas where if you really want to focus on that, you want to actually work with a web developer. It's not as easy to optimize on your own. And you may not know how to connect to things like Google Search Console and Google Analytics. So if you want to start measuring and figuring out whether people are actually visiting your website, whether you're actually, you know, not wasting your time with everything you're doing out there, that's when you want to consider a web developer, because you really need that additional technical expertise of, okay, well,
Mhm.
how do I connect my website to Google Analytics? How do I set up Search Console? How do I make sure that my images are doing what they should for search engines?
Yep.
How am I optimizing all of my content? Also, I think if you're ready to do like an entire marketing campaign where you want to actually create what's called a UTM. It's a tracking link for Google Analytics sake. Um, if that makes you go crazy and you're like, I have no idea what that means, that's where you want to get people involved who know what they're doing, who
Mhm.
know how to connect those dots together. I would say another area is if you're tired of like stock photography, you're tired of looking like everybody else and you're ready to maybe take your own photos or kind of branch out into some video or doing something that's a little bit more personalized to your business. That's when you want to work with people who understand, hey, we got these we got these gorgeous pictures from our photographer, but when we put them on our website, it slows our website down like crazy. Why
Mhm.
is that? You know? Well, that's because images need to be optimized to be on a website. Things that you could print out on a full-size poster, that's what you get from your photographer. They don't need to be that big for the web.
Mhm.
And so a developer knows how to size those. They have the tools to make those images so that they don't slow down your website.
Yep.
Site speed is another huge one. If
Oh,
your
yeah.
website's not performing well, that's when you want to work with a developer.
Yep, and I've seen some real slow websites that, need some optimization help.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the time when someone has me take a look at their site, I'll look at that first picture that shows up in the heading of their website. I'll
Mhm.
look at that picture and it's like 4 megabytes. And, I mean, for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so huge. It should be like less than a megabyte. And you
Yep.
could still get a beautiful image that looks really good there. So yeah, I
Yeah.
do a lot of image optimization when I'm fixing site speed.
Yep. Super useful, and you don't have to sacrifice quality for that, which I love.
Yeah, yeah.
So and we also one of the things that web developers can help with is website maintenance. Websites require maintenance to keep and updates to stay relevant, secure, and user friendly. Sometimes plugins break. Tell me a little bit more about some of the website maintenance things that web developers can help with.
Sure. Particularly with open source software where you're using a platform like I mean there are things out there other than WordPress. You've got Joomla, you've got Drupal. These are all content management platforms, but they're community developed. So the community works together to add new features, to create these beautiful designs, these beautiful templates. And so you have all these tools, all these wonderful tools to make it so that your website does what you need. It gives you the functions you need, and you don't have to be a developer to have those.
Hmm.
The offset for that is that naughty people can find security holes in those and try and hack your site. And so yeah, people are like, oh, WordPress is so insecure. It really isn't. It's not any more insecure than anything else if you keep it updated.
Hmm.
The community is always keeping things updated. There are companies out there that basically test the plugins that are available. They test themes. They're constantly testing, and if they find a security hole, they let the developer of the plugin or the theme know and get it patched. So as long as you stay on top of that and you have someone who is making sure that everything is kept up to date, then you're no less insecure than anyone else.
Yep.
Um, there are websites that can't be hacked as easily, but the trade-off for that is you actually have to have a developer work on those because they are customizing everything.
Hmm.
Everything from and they have to access it with special tools. You can't help maintain that content. So there's always that trade-off
Yep.
between something that's easy for you to go in and use versus something that's also easy for a hacker to kind of poke holes into.
Yep. And we're actually one of our projects currently is working on one of those super secure sites that are very custom, and that's something that we're currently in process with, and it's something that we can help help small businesses with if they need a more secure way
Oh,
to.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to be afraid of WordPress. You just have to make
Mhm.
sure that, you've got a good security plugin, you've got a good firewall, and you've got great hosting.
Yep. Yep. Great. Well, Paula, thank you so much for being here today and chatting with me about websites. And thank you so much for just taking the time out of your day. If you're out there thinking, I need some help with my website, please feel free to reach out to us in the comments or send us an email through our website, lmarketingandevents.com. And we will chat with you later.
Yeah,
Have a good,
absolutely.
yeah, have a good day, everyone.